DTFF.
Again, here's Drinking and Talking Fantasy Football with your host, Jake Trowbridge and Dustin Lunt.
Welcome back to DTFF, everyone. Happy Tuesday evening. Thank you for joining us. We've got a rockin' episode this evening by the looks of my co-host and our guest jamming out in the background. We are continuing our divisional breakdown series this evening, talking all things NFC West, and good friend of the show, Hoove, back on. If you missed out on the trivia episode about a month or so back, go check that out. We had lots of fun. But back to talk all things about his beloved 49ers, which we will get into that more later. I especially want to know how you became a 49ers fan living in Wisconsin. And I know you're not native necessarily to Wisconsin, but fact remains you're here. But before we get into all that, my co-host Jake, how are you doing this evening, sir?
Doing so well because we get to talk about, honestly, what is probably one of the legitimately more exciting divisions in fantasy football. So it does feel nice to be able to, after some of these ones that have gone through, where it's like pulling teeth to find fantasy relevance, it's nice to have the oyster opened up for us. So I'm very excited for that. Of course, I'm excited that Hoove is here. My goodness, I couldn't be more excited. This man who's been on a whirlwind, we were talking about it before we hopped on, but this man's last few weeks have been wild. Joining Club Fantasy, Optimus Fantasy. Obviously, everybody's going to be hearing a lot more about that as it comes out. You're the social media manager, video editor for that. You're in Scott Fishbowl. I mean, what more do you want, man? What more are you after? How are you?
I am everywhere, man. We're rocking and rolling. And whenever I hear Jake singing, it just brings me right back to Jose's Landing. And I start feeling the vibes and I start going. So it just makes me want to just be in Canton's even more hearing that theme song. So we're rocking and rolling, but we're having a good time. And like Jake alluded to, it has been a very, very busy last few weeks for moi, but it is very rewarding because a lot of hard work for so many people, a part of the teams that I'm on, have finally come to tuition. I think that's the word. It's probably not, but that's okay. We're going to roll with it. And anyways, it's finally come to fruition, and now things are rocking and rolling. So it's super exciting, that we're finally launching Optimus Fantasy. I was kind of newer to the team and joined last minute, but still just knowing Nate and Jen and what they've all put into it and what they're doing and building, I can't be more excited to be a part of it. And as well as Club Fantasy, going to the NFL draft and being there in Detroit and representing them and Women of Fantasy. Congratulations, Women of Fantasy as well, getting solidified, getting their certificate of officially Women of Fantasy Football. So shout out to them. Yeah. But just finally, being a part of that team and seeing how the chemistry is and the way that the leadership is amongst Jake and Faith and Kelly and everyone over there, I just couldn't sign up any faster. So I'm super excited where things are. But man, are good things coming this season. So let's get talking about it because bang, bang, Niner gang representing. How we doing?
I love the shirt.
Oh, love it. But before we get into it, we got to talk about what we're drinking because this is the Drinking and Talking Fantasy Football podcast. So, Hoove, since you are our esteemed guest this evening, we'll start with you.
I am having the blood of I'm having a daiquiri. I'm having a daiquiri tonight. Maybe I'm feeling a little more looser than normal, from having one before this. But you know what? We're feeling good. I'm going for the hard stuff. That's why I went straight for the Seagrams. So.
Oh yeah,
I'm feeling it. So, me. I'm probably.
I think hard stuff. I think daiquiris, Hoove. That's the first thing I think of when I hear somebody say, I'm getting into the hard stuff. Yeah, what kind of daiquiri you doing? That's what I say all the time.
I'm Seagram escape. I'm escaping right now, let me tell you. But, man, I'm probably the biggest lightweight in Wisconsin. So this is the hard stuff.
It's a high bar, to be fair. It's a high bar to clear.
It really is.
So no shame at all in that. Now you were looking at yours. You started talking about the blood. I was going to say the blood of your enemies is what you're drinking tonight. Still
The
could
blood of
be.
my fantasy enemies.
Dustin, you brought us something that honestly looks not that far off from what Hoove is imbibing. What is this magic?
So this is a local brewery here in Madison, Youngblood Beer Company, and
Ooh.
I got the beer because the flavors sound amazing. This is a fruit punch sour. It's made with dragon fruit, passion fruit, orange, and guava. But I bought it more for the name. That they name their beers terrifically. If I give them kudos for anything, it's this. This one is called Sir Wendy's, and I love it.
It's a great name.
Awesome.
They do it better than anybody else at the naming game, honestly.
But yeah,
That's
this
amazing.
is my kind of sour beer. It's not too bad. Gives you a little bit of pucker, but can easily have a couple of them. So this is right in line with what I like. What do you think about it, Jake?
I'm enjoying this. You know how they say like 80% of the taste is in the smell? As soon as I ran this guy under my nose, I was smitten. I was in. So you done good, sir. You done good.
Yes.
That's honestly really
All right.
true. That's a very, very good informational take right there.
I definitely heard it on something that I shouldn't be treating as fact. Like it's definitely a TV show that probably it might not or might not be true, but I'm gonna believe that it is.
Sesame Street. He heard it from
So-
Big Bird.
I would believe it more if it was from Sesame Street as opposed to the garbage that I watch now. But either
Be
way,
careful,
it's
kids.
wonderful.
What? I'm sorry, I should have cut you off. Go ahead.
No. You're so
Oh, I
careful.
love
Kids,
it.
make sure that we're not drinking. Drink responsibly. Oh Jesus, we're getting so off.
Oh,
This is just
They
a
should
start.
they should have an updated version of it for adults. I do maintain that. All right, but Dustin, I like it. I know you're not a sour guy, but you're gonna get through this.
No, but I like this one. I like this one. This is my kind of sour. It's not too bad. Gives you just a little bit, and I love the passion fruit flavors, the tropical flavors.
Yeah.
It's real nice. Real
I
nice.
Okay.
Okay,
Little Tropic Thunder.
let's move past all this chit chat here and let's get into the good stuff. No drunk trades during our divisional breakdown series here. We want to save as much time as possible here, getting into every team for every division, but start submitting them now. In a few weeks when we're done with this series, we will get right back at them and have plenty in the tank for you. So we're going to start off with your Niners and dedicate probably a good chunk of the show here to the Niners. But for people that haven't listened before, need a reminder, we're going to go through notable losses, notable additions, and any fantasy relevant draft picks that the team had this offseason. So for the Niners, they lost Sam Darnold, Ray McLeod, and Ross Dwelly. And I know I said they're notable, but not necessarily. And additions to the team, Josh Dobbs, Chris Connolly, and Trent Taylor. And in the draft, in the first round, Ricky Pearsall. In the fourth round, Isaac Guarendiendo. I butchered that. I'm sorry to Isaac. And then in the fourth, Jacob Cowing. So, Hoove, I'm going to throw this to you since this is your team. Tell us what you think about the Niners offseason so far, and then kind of what your expectations are fantasy-wise here for the upcoming season.
I just wanted to make sure. Did you say Chase Young as well? Is Chase Young on that list? I thought you might have said it, but at the same time, I didn't.
No, we just talk offensive fantasy players.
Okay, well, overall,
we are
49ers,
not IDP on this podcast.
That's okay. I will say overall for the 49ers, it seems like a lot of their question marks are defensively. So that's good for fantasy value, is that, you're probably going to get a lot of the same value out of your Ayuks, out of your Debos, Purdy, CMC. But honestly, Ricky Purcell has just been a big question mark for me. And with his addition into the offense, I'm also a little more skeptical about George Kittle going forward. So I think that overall, I'm interested to see where you guys feel on this, but right now, I think I'm still confident with Christian McCaffrey. This might be a hot take, I don't know, but I still feel confident with his value as being the dynasty RB1, and I wanted to come on the podcast to talk about it. I feel like with where Breece Hall and with where Bijan are, us not knowing where the offenses are going to probably a more pass-heavy offense as well. That CMC, seeing what he's done, I still think that he could be that RB1 once again this year. So what do you guys think?
Let's talk about it. I was hoping.
Jake, go ahead. You take this one.
I was very excited about this one. So CMC, in terms of long term, obviously that's a side of this, and then just 2024. I put out my dynasty running back rankings just yesterday over on a Fantasy Life live stream. I have CMC as number 2. I know, don't yell at me, but I have him as my number 2 running back for dynasty, just behind Breece Hall. I am more of a optimist with Breece's situation, and the age gap, it's just enough for me. Because I don't know about you, when I play with dynasty and I look at values by position, running back gets a very condensed window for me. So it is like only a 2 to 3 year window where I'm really judging these running backs. CMC is 27 years old. We know that the drop-off starts typically around 28, 29 for a lot of these running backs, but he's a different beast. So his pass catching is what I want you to speak to, especially because we're not talking about Derrick Henry, who gets, 80% of fantasy points just strictly by running. We're talking about a guy who is basically half and half, maybe 40-60 in favor of the pass catching. So in dynasty, I still love him. But for you in 2024, I mean, even take that out of it. He's 27 years old. Is he just, obviously he's the guy for you, but is he the number 1 overall pick for you in redraft? Obviously he's your number 1 running back, but just positionally overall, do you want him above guys like Justin Jefferson, Jamar Chase, etc.?
I think you could talk me into it. I really do. Just overall, just not knowing with what you're going to get from a lot of other running backs and just having that confidence in what CMC is going to bring to the table. I think I actually do feel very confident in that. I'm picking from the 5 spot in our Scott Fishbowl in Madison this year. So who knows? Maybe if CMC falls to the 5 spot, maybe I'll be going heavy RB right on the first round. And I feel confident about it. I won't feel bad about it. Passing on a quarterback in a super flex league might hurt a little bit, but I really feel confident going into this year about what CMC brings back to the table. Dustin, what do you think?
Yeah, I for redraft, definitely RB1 for sure. CMC this year, without a doubt. Like that's not even close for redraft. For dynasty though, I can make the case either way, and I know I'm kind of hedging my bets here. Because I do think he's probably got 2 elite years yet under his belt. But with the age, we never know when that cliff is going to hit. So if I was doing some sort of dynasty rankings, I would probably have him like 3rd overall, just behind Breece Hall and Bijan. But I mean, if you have them at, not you in particular, but someone has them at RB1 for dynasty, I wouldn't necessarily hate that either and slam them for it, because I think a case can be made that
I'll stamp that.
There's a case can be made that he's probably got a couple elite years left too, and if you're playing in that 2 to 3 year window, why not?
I still feel confident, even knowing that, like, with what Derrick Henry is going to Baltimore and doing, and seeing that, I mean, his efficiency didn't drop off at all his last year in Tennessee, and you're seeing him go over to Baltimore. And like, if you saw any regression out of CMC, I'd start feeling a little more worrisome about it. But you're not seeing anything, and Derrick Henry is 30 now, turning 31, I believe. So I mean, he's got another 3 years at least, before you might start seeing some regression. The injury history might creep up, a few years early, but still, like, until I see it, I just have to ride out with what I've seen. So no disrespect to Breece, no disrespect to Bijan. The same thing with what they've shown is like, we know that the Jets really want to use Aaron Rodgers' arm and get the most out of it, and that means passing the ball downfield with Mike Williams, Garrett Wilson, and even those little dump offs to Malachi Corley like we're seeing all over Twitter highlights. So we know that they're going to be passing the ball, and I don't know how many times it's going to be into Breece Hall's hands, or Bijan's hands, but I also know as a 49ers fan, let CMC eat. I should have wore the other shirt, but that's okay. So I feel confident.
You still have time. You can still go get that other shirt.
I'll get it. I'll take it out right now. Just Hulk Hogan it.
First of all, that is Mike 5 Games Williams to you. That's his official name on this podcast. You might not know that. But we're going back to CMC and the 49ers. What is so interesting about what you brought up? First of all, I love that this turned into a pro Derrick Henry podcast for a minute again. I didn't even have to orchestrate it this time, so I'm always a big fan whenever that happens naturally. But with CMC, you mentioned it, like, I don't know, Brock Purdy, how often is he going to be really throwing? Is it going to be more than what we saw last year as compared to somebody like Aaron Rodgers or even Bijan Robinson maybe is in a similar situation because Arthur Smith is gone? But let's talk about the passing then here. So it's all running through Brock Purdy. And Brock Purdy last year, crazy efficient dude, hyper efficient. But through, I think, San Francisco, if I'm not mistaken, through the fewest attempts of any team in the NFL last year. So my question to you, he's got all the goods. Talked about them adding Ricky Pearsall. Is it Pearsall? Pearsall? Purcell? Pearsall. Okay.
I'm going
Thank
Pearsall.
you for clarifying. All right. Okay.
I could be wrong. It could be like a whole Ashane thing this year, but I'm going with Pearsall until I'm corrected on it. So
I'll take it. But in any case, he's only added weapons at this point. So have we seen the best of Brock Purdy for fantasy, or what are your expectations for him?
I still feel confident, like drafting him at ADP. I believe that he's QB 12. I want to say. I believe he's right behind Caleb Williams, and still, like, I think that there's going to be plenty of weeks that Brock Purdy is going to be a top 10 quarterback, and there's going to be very seldom that he's not, including those bye weeks. Boom. Smart brain. But I think that have we already seen the ceiling for Brock Purdy? I don't think so. I think that we're going to see the ceiling for Brock Purdy as long as Trent Williams is in the game. And any game that Trent Williams is in the game, he is the most valuable player. And I'd honestly laugh a little bit, even though I was rooting for Brock Purdy or CMC to get MVP last year. But the only MVP on that team is Trent Williams. And you see it when those 3 games that Trent wasn't there. That's when the question marks started popping about Brock Purdy. And Brock Purdy, he is elite, but he's elite when he has Trent Williams, which is a big thing for any quarterback when you have that confidence that you're not going to get hit in your blind side. So as long as he has the protection, I don't care about the weapons that he has around him. Might be a boring take, might be a hot take. I don't care about the Debos and the Ayuks and stuff. As long as we have Trent Williams, Brock Purdy, and Christian McCaffrey, I feel very confident about what the 49ers can do. So this is a big 3.
That. Can I ask for a quick rankings from everybody? Dustin, rank these 3 for this year, these 3 quarterbacks. Brock Purdy, Jordan Love, CJ Stroud. What's your rankings on those 3 guys for this year?
Can I go last?
Well, it'd be in the opposite order of you saying them there. It would be Stroud, Love, Purdy in my book.
I think I agree with you. Who
you should?
Who do you have?
I'm gonna sound like the guy here, but I'll go Stroud because that's my dynasty QB2. And I honestly think he could finish as QB1 this year. There's very, very good chances of him doing it, at least top 5. I don't know if Brock Purdy gets top 5, and I don't know if Jordan Love gets top 5, even though I believe very strongly in what the Packers can do overall. I still feel like it's Stroud, Purdy, Love, but I could be wrong. I really could. I think that the Packers have Super Bowl aspirations this year, and I can see them even going farther than my 49ers. And I'll say the Irish show, because we all know how regression is. It's hard to go back twice. And if you guys are the ones to take it over this year, I would be very happy for you because you guys gave me a run for my money last year in the playoffs. So I was a little worried, but man, would it be cool to see everyone around here kind of get a moment like in 2010. So I'm hoping
That was us against you, by the way. That's how I felt watching it. I was like, it's me and Dustin against Hoof in this game.
That's okay.
But I bring those three up because to me, they're all
exactly
basically the same guy. I honestly think those three quarterbacks are all the same guy. And I'm going to be the guy who's like, give me the guy who goes latest of the group. And I think it will be Brock Purdy for fantasy. So I'll probably end up drafting a lot of Brock, I guess is my point with that. But, yeah.
BCB. BCB.
Wait, is that his middle name? Kurt?
Yes.
Catherine? What's his middle C? What is C?
BCB.
Oh, okay.
Okay.
I gotcha.
Yeah.
This is a PG-13 show. Not really, but I just don't want to, in case my mom's watching.
This is a farm show. This is a farm show. We're talking about cows. We're talking about farm animals, man.
In any case, Dustin, anything else to say about Brockster?
Brockadoodle-doo.
I mean, I don't hate Brock Purdy. It's gonna. I mean, just from how I have him ranked, I'm sure people are shaking their fists at me, saying, how can you have him ranked, the lowest of those three? It's not that I hate him. I guess I just don't see a very high ceiling for him, which makes me nervous. I think. I feel like with Jordan Love, you could get some of those spike weeks there that'll win you weeks. I just don't see that with Brock. I think he's a very safe quarterback, and I think he's going to be very consistent. And if that's what you're looking for, that's great. But I just don't see a ton of high-end upside for him.
Yeah. It's just, are they going to have him throw more this year? And how many more? Because Kyle Shanahan just doesn't do that.
Mm-hmm.
He just doesn't make his guys throw that much. And Brock Purdy is arguably too good of a quarterback for Kyle Shanahan, or normally the worse that they are. That's the only thing that even forces him to throw more. And now Brock's too good. Now he's not going to throw anymore. So anyways, double-edged.
Third problems, man.
Jake, speaking of who Brock Purdy throws to, there's been this ongoing question all offseason so far. Is Debo going to get traded? Is Ayuk going to get traded? Are they both going to be on the team when the season starts? Do you have a feeling one way or the other about this situation? And if they're both on the team come redraft season, who would be your preferred wide receiver?
Oh, man. I think they're both going to be on the team. If you asked me a few months ago, I probably would have told you I felt like Ayuk would have been shipped out somewhere. A lot of people were throwing out the Patriots. I was honestly feeling the Lions a little bit. I could have seen that, him being on the other side of Amon-Ra.
Oh.
So that would have been pretty nasty. But I feel like they'll work it out in some capacity that he will be back, as well as Debo. I'd have to see and double check their ADPs one more time. I believe that Ayuk is still being drafted as like a top 15 wide receiver, I believe, right?
Yes, he's right on the fringes at least. Yeah.
Yes. So I think that if you're gonna go, I'll be the smart fantasy player here, and I'll go for value here, and I'll say from what you can get out of Debo, probably is going to be worth a shot as well. There's just so many top tier wide receivers that you can take a stab on around that range this year. That's like, you might as well just go and get Debo instead and save that pick for a Puka Nacua, at wide receiver 11 or whatever. So I'd probably go Debo over Ayuk.
Mm-hmm.
I like it. This is our annual tradition around here. We always have to have this debate. Brandon Ayuk and Debo Samuel. There's never been a more lasting debate on this podcast than that. And I tend to go back and forth a lot. But I think this year I'm just deciding, fuck it. I'm just going to go with Brandon Ayuk. I want to will it into fruition, to use one of your words, Hoov. I want to will it to happen because this fucking guy is never not open on the field. But because of how talented everybody is around him and the fact that he's not the first read in this offense, he just gets overlooked all the damn time. And I've never watched a game that's not a Packers game before. and just been like, why the fuck aren't you throwing this guy the ball? He's wide open. And that's how it feels every time with Brandon Ayuk. So I want good things for him. That's all. But you make the more salient point from a fantasy perspective, I think. Where are you falling, Dustin, this year? Who's it going to be?
I'm back on Team Debo this year. I agree.
Woo!
Just Ayuk's gotten up there a little too high in value for me. So give me Debo. And we've seen him in what his very top end is. Do I think he's ever going to reach that level of fantasy value again? Probably not, but at least we know he has those spike weeks in him like that. So yeah, give me the value and give me the guy that I've seen it done before.
I dig it.
Yeah.
Do you want to beer bet it? Do you want to beer bet it this year, Dustin? Huh?
Sure.
Overall points per game finish?
Yeah, let's do it.
All right. Ayuk versus Debo. I love it. Thank God. Another one for the books. Okay.
Yes. Mark it down. I'm glad you're going to be doing that shot.
That's
come the end
tough.
of the
I feel
season.
like in that one, I'd have to go with Jake because he probably will score more, but that's because that's why his ADP is higher. Is he worth his ADP? Like, I bet you Debo out produces his ADP, but versus Brandon Ayuk, I'm not so sure.
That's a good take.
So yeah,
Dustin
I guess
should have thought about that take before he
bring
made
it
this
on.
beer bet with me.
yeah.
Nope.
I love it.
It's
though.
like, was
regrets.
Russell Wilson a bad quarterback, or did he not perform up to his contract? So that's kind of the way I view it.
Yeah.
Was he bad, or
let's not talk about Russell Wilson. Can we just one podcast? I don't want to have to talk about Russell Wilson if we can. That's all I ask.
So moving on to
Jake's
the next
a
team, we got the
talented
Seattle
football player.
Seahawks.
Just can't fucking handle it anymore.
Yeah, and
all right, last question before we move on, Dustin. Is this fair though? I do want to get a gauge here
I think it's
because
fair.
again, just real quick. Okay, real quick in this for 2024 only. Assuming both of those guys stick around, Debo and Ayuk are still there. Obviously, Kittle's still there, which we haven't really talked about. CMC. What do we expect out of Ricky, if anything? Are you even going to take him as a dart throw late in drafts? What's your thought with him?
You asking me or Dustin?
Yes, sir. You who?
Oh man! All right, so I'll be put on the spot. I'll think about it. So I don't know if he is worth what people are drafting him in the rookie drafts right now. He's being brought way too high, and he's being drafted above guys like Adonai Mitchell, someone I'm very big on. Even someone like the two wide receivers over in New England, I still think I like both of them more. I really liked his ADP originally around draft season before he had that first round draft capital. So I'm a little more worried about what he's going to produce based off of what the expectations are. And I feel like people are going to label him very early on as a bust because they're not getting that fantasy production right off the bat. When in reality, what he's probably being brought in to do is all the things that you want from a player. And that's what Kyle drafted him in the first round for, because he is an awesome talent. I'm not going to knock him for that. He does all the right things, and I love that for him as a prospect, but I would have liked him so much more if he went to a different team, like if he was with the Steelers instead of Roman Wilson, or a team like the wide receiver 3 in Miami, something like that. It's really hard to believe in what he's going to produce in this offense, but I could be wrong. I'm very open to being wrong when it comes to Ricky Purcell this year. So take what I say with a very big grain of salt.
And if you're wrong, it benefits your team. So it's a win-win for you.
It is a win-win.
You really can't lose.
The house always wins here, baby. How you doing?
Dustin, anything else you want to talk about with San Fran here?
No, I think we covered it. I mean, we could talk about Kittle, but we know he's going to get dinged up for at least 3 or 4 games. But every time he's on the field, he'll produce for you. So,
you know when not to play him.
No,
basically.
That's just, and I'll take it. Yeah, exactly. All right, well, let's move on here. We'll move on to the LA Rams. We'll stay in the great state of California. In the offseason here, they lost Carson Wentz, Royce Freeman, Ben Skronik, and Bryson Hopkins, and they brought on board Colby Parkinson, Jimmy G, and Boston Scott. And in the draft, 3rd round running back Blake Corum, and 6th-round wide receiver Jordan Whittington. Jake, I'm going to throw this off to you. Let us know your thoughts about this Rams fantasy assets and what your expectations are for this upcoming season.
The problem with this question, Dustin, is that almost everything we're about to talk about with this team comes down to one question, which is just Matt Stafford. How's your back, bro? How is it hanging? Are you going to be okay? Are you going to be able to make it through this season? I honestly get a little worried about Matt Stafford these days. He's been through a lot in his career, and his injuries are nothing to sneeze at. And I think this team is obviously going to be a way different one if Jimmy Garoppolo sees the field for any significant stretch of this season. I'm just not a Jimmy G guy. I'm sure he's a wonderful person. He's certainly made for magazine covers, but he's not made for Madden covers. How about that, Jimmy, in your face? But I do think it's going to be tough to judge a lot of these guys, especially the wide receivers. So that's a cop-out answer. I know it is. But let's talk about let me just do it this way. If Matt Stafford is healthy, I think we can start from there. And so if he's healthy, what do I think about him in general? I don't know. I'm still not probably going to be drafting him because if he goes into the season healthy, great. But it's always going to be the back of my head. Am I going to get 8 games out of you? Am I going to get 6 games out of you? What's going to be the deal? So I won't be drafting Matt Stafford, but when you're sitting there and you're punting the quarterback position, let's say, and you get towards the late rounds, he's not going to be a sexy pick. He will be certainly available for you in the later rounds. Let's say all those 3 guys we talked about before are off the board. Brock's gone, Jordan Love's gone, CJ Stroud's gone. Matt Stafford in the late rounds, what are your thoughts?
I'm all in on Matt Stafford at value. I think that there's so many quarterbacks this year that they have that top 10 upside, that there's guys like Matthew Stafford, there's guys like Aaron Rodgers, that these veteran quarterbacks that people aren't viewing in the dynasty lens, that they're just sliding way down the ADP on Sleeper. And that's when people like us, we should jump in and we should scoop that up and get all that value, because Matthew Stafford, like I remember I read an article last year that just the right time, right pick, and Matthew Stafford came in off the bench for me, and he put up a QB8 week for me. So there's always that upside with what Matthew Stafford can have. Just like Jake was alluding to, it just comes down to injury and health. But we've also seen, the Rams weren't super big on drafting a quarterback this year in the draft. So there is always that option of maybe they trade for Matthew Stafford's successors halfway through the year. Maybe they're the first team that gets banged up and they go out looking for an answer. Maybe he gets banged up and they're put in a predicament. Well, hey, maybe we're the team in 2025 that actually goes out and does that. So there are so many options for what the Rams can do still, that I'm not worried about the production from Puka and Kupp and everyone involved. I still feel very confident. The only person I don't feel confident in is Blake Corum, but I'm sure that we'll talk about that in a sec. So
we will. Don't you worry. We will. Dustin, I don't know. You taking him as a stab? Are you also in on him at cost, as Hoop said?
At cost, sure. I think he'd be if you're one to roster 2 quarterbacks in your redraft team, I think he'd be a great second quarterback, especially considering some of the matchups he may have throughout the season. I mean, because we know that these fantasy options, as far as wide receivers, tight end, not so much, but the running back, we know they all produce. So Stafford will have his weeks. It's just a matter of knowing which of these weeks he's going to have. I don't see him having this elite upside, but I think at cost, yeah. I mean, I feel like he's got a safer floor than a lot of quarterbacks going above him.
That's the correct term.
I like that. God, maybe I should just wait. Maybe I won't even draft Brock. Maybe I will wait even further. I do this every fucking year, and I'm like, I'm not going to do it this round. I'm going to wait another round, and then the one guy I want gets taken, and then I got to wait another round and another. I'm probably going to draft a lot of Matt Stafford. God damn it!
I'm drafting a lot.
You wanted
So
Oof. Oh, God. Better you than me, my man. All right. You want to talk about him? Let's talk about him. All right. Blake Corum. You brought him up. It's a great question. It's the one that I probably have the least solid opinion about. So I can't wait to throw it to the field. But Kyren Williams, we're talking about injuries. Kyren Williams seems like he's unfortunately always injured. He's apparently injured right now as we're speaking. The coach doesn't think it's anything significant, won't miss any time. And he's actually pretty trusting in terms of coach speak. So I tend to believe it. But Kyren Williams versus Blake Corum, really, I think is what we're talking about here. How much are you investing in Blake Corum right now, Hoove?
I'm not investing very much, honestly. I think that there's more upside than some of the other RBs that we've seen recently that people have talked themselves into. Very similar to Zach Charbonnet last year. I think it's very, very similar to how the Seahawks running back room is going to be, is that people are going to talk themselves into Blake Corum, that he's going to take away all these reps away from Kyren Williams, but I just don't see it. I feel like there's a lot of miles on the tires with Blake Corum from what he did at Michigan, and Kyren Williams is very similar in the sense like an Isaiah Pacheco, where just because he was drafted later in the draft and he doesn't have that investment from the team, that anytime there's a free agent running back, it's, oh, well, they're going to go to the Rams and they're going to be this top running back. And I feel like Kyren Williams has shown that he can be that guy, like Isaiah Pacheco, like a Rashad White, that people doubt and believe that Bucky Irving's going to come in and take away from him as well. So I think it's time that people just stop worrying about Kyren Williams and start believing in it, even though Blake Corum might have a little more upside than someone like Zach Charbonnet, just because we know how Sean McVay is and the offensive mind that he is. He will create plays, just nothing I can see myself like putting in on a regular basis for fantasy reasons. So I'm out.
Hoove, you and I are like right there. I am not worried about Blake Corum either. I think going back to even Todd Gurley, he was the guy until they, ran him until his knees fell off. And then Cam Akers was the guy until he got injured. Everybody thought Darrell Henderson was going to come in and steal all these touches. But really, Cam Akers, when he was healthy, he was the guy. They gave him all the reps. So it's been this constant. We always think there's this young running back that they draft that's going to make this impact, and we just haven't seen that. Let's be honest. So I don't think this is any different. Will Blake Corum, spell Kyren Williams? Yeah, because there aren't any of those true, except for CMC, any true workhorse running backs anymore. There's always a somewhat split backfield. But I think this is probably as solid of a 1A as you can get these days. So give me Kyren all day long.
Easy top 10 running back this year. I could find an argument for him to be top 6, top 7 if you really wanted to. If you're just fully in on his health and you're like, well, fuck it. And if he gets injured, then I deal with it after that. I can see the argument for that. Yeah. Fuck you, Blake Corum. Not really. That was rude. But I do just feel like everybody's overrating him because of what he did in Michigan. But your point about him having a lot of tread does bear a ton of weight. Like, you're old. I know you racked up a lot of yards in college, but that just means you got a lot of touches in college. That's rarely a good thing for the NFL. So I take it back, Blake. I didn't mean that.
I take it back.
Tough time with people named Blake. That's all. That's a me thing. That's not a you thing. But Puka, on the other hand, I have no issues with people named Puka. Dustin, I don't think we've even talked about Puka really this offseason. Have we? Have we had a real discussion about Puka yet?
I don't think so. Let's do it, Jake. Start us off.
Well, Puka Nacua. So you put this in as a great question in the show sheet. Is he a real deal? Because we've been down this road before with wide receivers who come out of nowhere, quote unquote, out of nowhere. They don't always stick. Some of these guys do come out for a year and then really taper off, and we all look foolish. I don't think we're going to look foolish, but my question for you, Hoove, is he actually going to be the guy in that offense? Meaning, is his place above Cooper Kupp solidified? Or is this more of a back and forth thing than I'm giving it credit for?
I think that I'm all in on Puka being the guy. I think that even just like his draft profile last year, that people were like, I mean, he was injury prone coming out of BYU. People forget about that too. So like the fact that he's like solidified himself as in the NFL, barring those injuries in college and whatnot, I feel like they're just going to ride it out. And if he has a career trajectory very similar to Cooper Kupp, they'll find the next guy. But Cooper Kupp, like, he will be fantasy relevant. I don't think he's the one in that offense anymore. And does that mean that he's just going to fall off this fantasy island? No, he'll still be good. But Puka Nacua is the real deal, 100%.
I love it. I love it. Now, the question here I think we need to get into, Dustin, are you going to take him or are you going to wait and take Cooper Kupp in your drafts? Because I know there's going to be at least, a round and a half difference, probably in ADP by the time we get up to the season. What's your method?
I would probably wait. Just take the value in Cooper Kupp. While I do think that Puka is the number one on this team, I think Kupp still has a lot of value. And Kupp was injured a lot last year. I'm expecting him to come back healthy and have a greater impact than he did last season. But give me the value at ADP, and I'll take one of these other elite wide receivers on another high-powered offense at that spot where right around where Puka's going.
That I think is the tough part. Yes, Hoof.
Some people might think that his ADP is a little too high right now, and they're like, oh, well, you're only drafting for his ceiling. Like, you're expecting him to produce back-to-back. It's like, I don't think that, like, where he's being drafted, you have to vote back-to-back. If you were wanting him to go back-to-back, you'd be drafting him 101 because that's how fantasy relevant he was. So where he's going, like, if he puts up wide receiver 1 numbers, that's what you're drafting him for. So I'm all in on Puka. So we might have been on the same page for Blake, but we are falling off the track real quick, Dustin.
Fighting. This is Jets and Shark shit now with Puka and Cooper Kupp.
That's awesome.
But I will say that the thing is, like, because if I'm staring down Puka Nacua versus AJ Brown, that's where it gets really hard for me. It's where it's really hard, and that's the decision you have to make. Whereas a couple of rounds later, I think the argument maybe, I'm not saying I'm fully on Dustin's side, but I understand is like in round 3, it's a bunch of like question marks at wide receiver. Whereas in round 1, it's like, oh, I could just get my dudes. I feel locked in with AJ Brown or whoever the hell it is. I don't know. That said, I still think Puka Nacua is the guy, and I'm trading literally everything that I have in Dynasty for him. Just so much. Yes, who? You have
one more time. This is the last time this hand's going in the air. I swear, I promise. There's one thing I will say about if you're comparing Puka and AJ Brown, and you're staring them down and you're wondering, who am I going to take? I want you to remember that there's only one of them that has a quarterback they both have an injury prone quarterback, but only one of them is really good. So
boo this man. No, boo this
boo.
I will not tolerate Jalen Hurts slander on this podcast.
He's not bad. He's not bad, but is he elite other than the fantasy, like from what he puts out in fantasy? I don't think so. I don't think I look at Jalen Hurts' game and go, that's a top 10 quarterback in my opinion. But
so basically what you're saying is Matthew Stafford greater sign Jalen Hurts.
If you want that clickbait, you go for that. You go for that.
No, we want to clip it. We want to clip it, and we're going to post it tonight. I can't wait.
I'm stamping it. Go for it.
I will say the Rams could very well be the all-injury team for 2024, though. We're talking about all of these guys who went through significant injuries last year. Stafford, Kyron Williams, Cooper Kupp. It could be Puka out there having to throw and catch the ball for like 16 games next year. So that is the thing that concerns me, I think, with that team. But Dustin, what say we move on to the next team here?
Yes, let's. And what I think is going to be one of the more intriguing conversations we have this evening, we'll move on to the Cardinals here. And in the offseason, they lost Marquise Hollywood-Brown, Rondale Moore, and Geoff Swaim. I know it's Jeff, but it's a G, so it's Geoff in my world. Notable additions, DJ Dallas, Xavier Weaver, and Chris Moore. And in the draft, the second coming, Marvin Harrison Jr. In the third round, running back Trey Benson. In the third round, also grabbed a tight end in Tip Raymond. And then in the sixth round, you got Tajon Palmer, wide receiver. So, Hoove, we're going to kick it back to you. What do you think about all these off-season moves, and what's the fantasy outlook for these Cardinals?
All right, I'm going to do the typical Hoove move, and I'm going to say that you have no idea where I'm going to go with this question. But two things stuck out. One, you didn't talk about probably the most notable addition, and that was backup quarterback Desmond Ridder. I mean, geez, come on, man. We got Desmond Ridder in the building. The chemistry is going to be way up. It's going great down in the desert because Desmond Ridder has arrived, let me tell you.
Desmond Ridder, greater sign Jalen Hurts. You heard it here, folks.
Jesus Christ.
Yeah.
This podcast is going to get me canceled, I swear. But second point, this one isn't as cancelable. Too many vowels for that. I don't know. But Tip Raymond, in my opinion, out of all those people you talked about, I'm going to talk about Tip Raymond. Tip Raymond, to me, gives me Tucker Kraft vibes. I feel like he's going to have some sneaky value this year. Who knows? Maybe they throw out some 2 tight end sets. They really only have Marvin Harrison Jr. over there catching passes in the wide receiver room. So who knows? Maybe they throw out a 2 tight end set. You know, you got Trey McBride on one side, you got Tip Raymond on the other. So I'm very cautiously optimistic about Tip Raymond. He definitely is going to be more of a blocker, but you never know what the upside could be. So there's definitely targets that are open to be grabbed, and they're not going to all go to Marvin Harrison Jr. as much as everyone likes to think so, but they could go to Tip Raymond. So,
well, obviously 80 of them are going to go to Greg Dortch, and he's going to score 70 touchdowns with him. So for sure, he's not going to get all of those touches. But I'm going to file that one away as a dynasty sleeper there with old Tip. Old Tipper, we'll call him.
There's a tip.
Just the tip. Just for $1, just to see how it feels. Anyways, you didn't want to talk about him, but we're going to make you talk about him because he, as Dustin said, he's the second coming. He's like the greatest wide receiver prospect we've had in, I don't know, what, the last 5 years or something like that. Right? Something close to something that like anyways. That. I don't know. So we can talk about him in redraft. I think we should talk about him in redraft. Because rookies, I've noticed a growing contingent recently of people being really still scared off of rookie wide receivers. And it feels like we should be starting to move a little beyond that point with the recent information that we've received from some of these last few draft classes. So I don't know, Dustin, am I talking crazy? Is it weird to still think about Marvin Harrison Jr. as a top 10 guy this year in his rookie season? Is that unfathomable?
No, I don't think so at all. I mean, we saw Justin Jefferson his rookie year, Jamar Chase his rookie year, Puka last year. I know he wasn't as highly rated prospect coming out, but I mean, we've seen these rookie wide receivers come in and break the rookie wide receiving record. I mean, it's fallen over the last 5 years how many times? So I don't see any reason why Marvin Harrison can't do it this year. You've got a decent quarterback in Kyler Murray. You don't have a lot behind him, so you know he's going to get the ball thrown to him a ton. I have no problem taking him inside the top 10 as far as wide receivers, not top 10 overall, but top 10 wide receivers for redraft this year. I wouldn't even hesitate if he fell to me. Say
any hesitation?
Middle of the second round.
To me, Marvin Harrison Jr., the best way to describe him is, I'm not a Dune fan by any means, but the meme of Isanaga, that's the one. It's like, that's how everyone in the desert down in Arizona needs to be staring at Marvin Harrison Jr. like, that's the second coming right there. Yeah, that's him. Isanaga, that's him. So I'm not worried at all for what Marvin Harrison Jr. could do his rookie year, what he could do in, for multiple years. I just worry a little bit about, where he's being drafted and the expectations right away. Is he going to do this on a regular basis? That's a big thing. Is he going to have those 25-point weeks? Absolutely. I'm very confident in that. But there's also that chance that he goes for 10 and you're drafting him as a wide receiver 1 right now. So be mindful of that. Maybe his ADP slides a little bit before people start doing their redraft leagues, but Dynasty, the value where he's being drafted, absolutely. Maybe he should even go a little higher. Who knows?
I love that. I would like to do one quick comparison for redraft. Just a this or that, a quick this or that. Because what I've looked at early ADPs, and we always say this early in the offseason, ADP doesn't mean a ton. But as of right now, it is DJ Moore versus Marvin Harrison Jr. That's kind of the line right now, which is a really interesting line. So, who, Marvin Harrison Jr. or DJ Moore in 2024?
And this is strictly redraft, right?
Mm-hmm. Yep.
You know what? Honestly, give me DJ Moore. People are very worried about DJ Moore, and I feel like he is still going to be that guy. I actually have an article coming out next week on Club Fantasy talking about the Chicago Bears offense, so make sure you guys go ahead and check that out. But I'm not worried about DJ Moore at all. Him finishing as wide receiver 6 in PPR and half PPR leagues last year, and that was the first time that he's had a quarterback. Whatever you want to think about Justin Fields, whether you think he's a starting quarterback or not, the first time that he's actually had someone decent, he has been a top 10 wide receiver. So the fact that you're adding Caleb Williams in, who's just that and more, I don't know why he's still being slept on. It's hard to believe in him over some of the other guys, but I don't think he's going to disappoint by any means from where he's being drafted this year. So I hate to say it, but in redraft this year, I think I like DJ Moore over Marvin Harrison. That one, I will easily put my stamp on. You can put that one out.
Oh, yeah.
But put it out right after you do the Jalen Hurts one so people get back on my side.
We'll bookend it. We'll sandwich it. We'll give you 2 nice takes with that one in the middle of it. How about that?
Good.
That's what we'll figure
A
out.
shit sandwich.
That's a hoop move. TM, by the way. Dustin, what do you think before we move on there? Which guy would you rather have this year?
I would take Marvin Harrison only because I like Caleb Williams for the long run, and I don't hate your take at all by any means. Hoove, I think it's solid. It's just my preference. I just don't trust Caleb Williams as a rookie. So give me Kyler. I think he's got something to prove this year. He's finally got another elite wide receiver. He hasn't had someone since Hopkins was there. So now he's got that big target to throw to. We've seen him do it in the past. So that's why I'm leaning towards Harrison on this one.
Can I rebuttal just a second?
Please do.
I'm going to rebuttal that one a little bit just because, kind of how Jake was talking about earlier about Brandon Ayuk just getting open. I think that's going to be DJ Moore this year. I have Rome Odunze probably playing the outside. You're probably going to have DJ Moore being your spread guy, and then you have like Keenan Allen playing slot. And I could even see like some 2 tight end formations coming out with Shane Waldron's offense. So I really like Cole Kmet. This isn't a Bears offense topic, but I'm very optimistic about Cole Kmet, even Gerald Everett at his ADP. And guys like, I think Keenan Allen will be off the field more than people expect, but DJ Moore will always be on the field. And I think that Marvin Harrison might get that double coverage more than what DJ Moore will, just because there's so many weapons in Chicago. It's like, how are you going to double cover DJ Moore? You can easily double cover Marvin Harrison and then have it be the Trey McBride show. So
it's a good point.
Kind of. I'm against you on that.
Wendy, all in with you there, Hoove, all in on Moore. I'm tepid only because the stat, and I've said it once and then I'll never say it again until next week. Rookie quarterbacks have only supported 5 wide receivers in total since 2010 that have finished as wide receiver 12 or better. 5 in total since 2010 with a rookie quarterback. That's the thing that gives me pause on him. But I think you're right. He's definitely talented enough where it's like, yeah, go worry about DeAndre Swift and Cole Kmet and et cetera, and leave me the fuck alone. Let me catch a ball. That was my DJ Moore impersonation in case anybody missed that. But I do want to talk about, I thought so. I do want to talk about Kyler Murray though. So the guy throwing him the ball, is he undervalued right now? This is the question I've been waiting to ask all night. Is Kyler Murray undervalued right now? Do we think? Who would you say that that's leaning that direction?
once again, I'm here to say that a lot of the quarterbacks in the market are undervalued. And I think that each one that you can get at their ADP is really worth the value. And I really can't look at anyone and say like, oh, that's a reach. I really think that it's very, very accurate right now. And Kyler Murray, from where he's being drafted, like you can scoop that up. That's a mobile quarterback. That's someone that has top. I don't know if he has top 5 upside right now, but weeks he definitely has that top 5 upside. And so if you can get him, like I believe he's. Is he outside? He's like QB 14, I want to say, or something like that, right?
He's right on the fringes of QB 12, but I don't know where exactly.
Yeah. Just like right behind like Brock Purdy. Maybe
he is QB 10. QB 10 right now.
Is
and
he
I'm
above
looking at
Caleb?
fantasydata.com.
Is he above Caleb?
He is above Caleb.
Well, I didn't go.
Yeah, I think he's a couple of spots above Caleb, if I'm not mistaken.
So yeah, I think that he's still worth the shot at there. Can't hate that too much.
One spot.
Just kind of, yeah. So I can't hate that too much. You're definitely going to have some great Kyler Murray weeks. So I'm here for it. Paris Johnson is switching to the left side today. That was announced. So they're switching around their offensive line. They're getting those pieces worked out. They'll have a whole summer, with it under their belt. So I'm optimistic about Arizona. I'm optimistic about Arizona. I can't.
You don't like to say
That's how I feel when I say good things.
I have to cover it up when I say it. Yeah.
No, I'm bullish about Kyler this year, especially another offseason removed from this injury he had that he came back late in the season for. So I'm excited to see him back at full strength. And like I said, with an elite wide receiver, he's able to throw to and an elite tight end. If we can
look at you.
What's it called?
Segue?
Right into the next question here. There you go, Jake. Segue. I knew you're here for a reason. Yeah, Trey McBride. He's currently Dynasty tight end number 2, which I have no issues with overall. Hey, Nate. But where are you comfortable taking him in redraft? I know some best balls I've been doing, he's been going awful early. And I don't know how comfortable I am with that. Although I'm a little bit early tight end adverse. I've gotten burned over the years taking tight ends early. So maybe that's just me. Once bitten, twice shy type deal here. But where would you be comfortable taking him?
I actually took Travis Kelce last year in the first round of Scott Fishbowl at 106 and got burned. But like the only year that it wasn't valuable to draft a tight end early and that everyone was super valuable, that was me. I was the guy that took him. But I'm not burnt in the sense I'm not going to do it again. Let me tell you, I'll probably still draft Sam Laporta early. I'll probably still draft Trey McBride early because the tight ends that are going early in these dynasty formats, I really love the stack ability that they have with them. I really like pairing Sam Laporta and Jared Goff at his value. I really like pairing Trey McBride with Kyler Murray at his value. So if you can take the reach on Trey McBride right now and also solidify Kyler, I love that for your fantasy teams. I would recommend that to everybody. And my homie Kelly in Phoenix, she's very big about tight ends and how the NFL is switching to more tight ends are some of the biggest guys on the fields, and they're also the receivers. So they're going to command targets, and that's kind of the way things are moving nowadays. So it's smart to start investing in a top end tight end, and I'm starting to come on board. So hero tight end, here we go.
Whew. I love that.
Jake, you now tell us what you think. And, we all know, listeners of the show know to do the exact opposite of it because your tight end takes haven't been great. But seriously, though, lay it on us.
It's
where are you? Come on.
Now I'm all in my head. Now I feel like you need to say the opposite of what I actually think. I don't know. I think with Trey McBride in short term, I'm just going to be avoiding because I don't trust myself, frankly, to make these tight end evaluations in redraft. I was also back in on Travis Kelce last year after being out on him the year before when he was notoriously amazing. So it's not going to be easy. It's not going to be good, but I'm going to pass up Sam Laporta and Trey McBride in redraft just because I will take my chances with your Evan Ingrams and so forth a little bit later on. I'm so comfortable with guys like that. And I honestly think that the floor is somewhat comparable for those guys. So Trey McBride, I will be out on. In Dynasty, though, I'm in. I'm very much in on Trey McBride. The fact that he's tight end 2 in Dynasty, I get it. I have no issues with it. Sam Laporta, Trey McBride, and then if you want to toss in, obviously, Mark Andrews, Brock Bowers, Dalton Kincaid, whatever your poison is. But yeah, I love me some Trey McBride. I don't know, though. Now I need to be worried about Tip coming up on his heels. So maybe I shouldn't invest in Trey for that reason.
I mean, Optimist today. Yeah. Optimist. I did. That was my last time. I said I wasn't going to do it. The claw, like liar, liar, I guess. Do the claw to mom, Dad. Do the claw to mom. You follow the claw's only weakness. Sub-zero temperature. Yeah, right. Now that that's done and over and done with. Oh man, I lost my train of thought for a second there. Jeez.
Long term,
I think that we should also, before we move on from the Cardinals, we should also talk about one of the biggest talking points for them, and that being the running back room. So, do you have a question made up for that?
Here's my question. I've been the biggest pro. You can back me up on this one at least, Dustin. The most pro James Conner person, maybe in the world, maybe in the whole wide world. But there is finally the thought this year, just for my 2 cents before I pass it off, that they drafted somebody who is actually a reasonable backup to James Conner. He was competing in previous years with guys like, I love him, but Corey Clement was like the threat, the number 2 guy there as recently as last year or the year before. He hasn't had any actual competition. That's why he's gotten like 95% of the touches and been so amazing for fantasy. But my question here to you is, do we think that the workload remains even comparable to what James Conner's had the last couple of years?
I've been kind of up and down on this. I just never was a big fan coming out of college for him. So I think that I'm like very big on oh man, I'm starting to space now. Jonathan Brooks. I've been really big on Jonathan Brooks being the solidified RB1 of this draft class. And I think that even someone like Marshawn Lloyd could step into that RB2 role for what he could produce for Green Bay. I'm just not as big about Trey Benson as everyone else is. He could have that fantasy value. I think that where he's being drafted, like, definitely take the shot. But James Conner, like, you're kind of seeing it the way that the NFL is you're seeing like your Lions backfields, and you're seeing Jahmyr Gibbs being the explosive guy. You're seeing David Montgomery being the red zone guy. I could see James Conner being that red zone guy because, you know, he's a big body and he'll be able to bowl himself in that end zone. So I could see him still maintaining that fantasy relevancy. And I don't know how explosive Trey Benson is to maintain like that whole role like a Jahmyr Gibbs would in Detroit. So I still feel like James Conner is going to maintain most of that role, even though there is some value for him. So not the biggest fan, but also not the biggest hater by any means of Trey Benson. So I remember why I raised my hand and did the claw thing with us talking about Trey Benson. I remember now. So with us talking about Trey McBride, Optimist Fantasy just put out their top 5 rankings, Nate's top 5, and he had Kyle Pitts ranked above Trey McBride at number 2. Would you take the stab on Kyle Pitts later in drafts than that tight end 2 ranking for Trey McBride?
Yes, because I was talking about wanting Evan Ingram above him. Kyle Pitts is going to be, I'm presuming, being drafted so closer to the Evan Ingrams of the world than the Trey McBrides because of how much he burned folks last year. So I would be the person to take that chance and draft Kyle Pitts later. Dustin,
I think he's tight end 6.
Okay.
Tight end 6.
I think I would probably, even though I don't like to draft tight ends that early, if I had to pick just strictly between those two, I would probably take McBride over Pitts. Pitts has burned me a couple times, but once you start getting into that tight end 6 range, it's just like might as well take a shot at the next 10 guys after him. They could all be tight end 6 by the end of the season. So it's when you get to that point, I'm just like, yeah, outside the top few, it's just like, give me one, give me them all. It doesn't matter. So I guess give me Trey McBride if he's going to be that one of the top options on his team.
I wanted to pick your brain on it 100%, not Hannibal Lecter style, but I just wanted to bounce some things off you guys because like Nate makes a really good point about it, with what Kirk Cousins did with TJ Hawkinson and how he uses the tight end. So Kyle Pitts does have some upside. I don't know if he has it more than McBride. So I think I'm still a McBride guy over Pitts, but it's worth talking about. So that's all I got. Why I raised my hand.
Damn sure not going to make another tight end beer bet here. So I think we can move on. I won't do another tight end beer bet until next week, probably. All right, Dustin, we want to wrap up with the final team of the
final team. And I feel like I'm in good company saying probably the least favorite team of this podcast for this show for this evening. And that's the Seahawks. Us as Packer fans, despise the Seahawks. And I'm sure as an NFC West team who you dislike them as well. So suitable that we're saving them for last. But notable losses here in the offseason, Drew Lock, DJ Dallas, Will Dissly, and Colby Parkinson. And they brought on board Pharaoh Brown and LaVisca Chenault. And in the draft, tight end in the 4th round, AJ Barner. I think, Jake, I'm going to throw it to you. Begrudgingly say good things about the Seahawks.
Oh, boy. I don't like that I've gotten the 2 most questionable teams of the night thrown to me. But with the Seahawks, again, unfortunately, it does come down to kind of one question, which is, what is the impact of Pete Carroll leaving? Probably more than anything for this team. It's like, how much of a drastic change in philosophy do we see with this team? Certainly with the backfield, we're going to have to analyze that. Pete was very particular with how he ran the backfield, not always in a reasonable way from the outside looking in, but he did have his style. So with the new offensive coordinator, new coaching staff in place, I know it's going to be a very interesting team. They have a lot of talent. They really do. Their wide receiver trio has the ability to be one of the best trios in the league. But are we relying comfortably on Geno Smith to be the guy to orchestrate all this too? I don't know. I don't even know that the Seahawks are that committed to Geno Smith, frankly. So when I start looking at the team, though, I do think that we start looking at the backfield because, again, I think that's where maybe the most drastic changes happen here. So Pete Carroll's out. We have 2 very talented running backs. You alluded to it earlier, I know you're not a big Zach Charbonnet guy, but even with like draft capital infused there, we've got 2 really early taken running backs. Kenneth Walker, I've always liked, but I don't know that I've loved. So what do we expect out of these guys? Is Kenneth Walker going to be a beast this year, Is Zach Charbonnet worth even considering for you? What are your thoughts here?
I don't mean to scratch at a scab and expose a sore wound, but I talk about that Seahawks Packer game on like a regular basis with my coworker and how every little thing had to go fucking right for the Seahawks to beat the Packers and knock them out of the playoffs. So I know why you hate them. And let me tell you, when Russ was there, it was so hard because I wanted to hate him, but as a Badgers fan, it's like, how can I hate the only guy that's ever been worth a shit that ever come out of Madison? So
we figured out a way to make that work.
Yeah,
we figured out a way to make that hate work. Don't worry, but I get what you're saying.
So when it comes to the Seahawks, though, and at least kind of with Walker, I think I'm a little more out than the consensus is, and I was more in than the consensus last year. So it's just hard for me and everyone to agree on this, I guess. But I think that Kenneth Walker has the talent, and that people I'm not really worried about Zach Charbonnet very much. I think that the new offense, especially with it being a defensive-minded coach, that they're going to just try things, and that's where Zach Charbonnet might chip into Kenneth Walker's role a little more. Even if it's not the most beneficial thing for the offense, they're just going to try something because that's their plan. And I feel like Zach Charbonnet is a part of their plan, And later on in the year, when it's shown that it's not working, maybe they start leaning a little bit more on Kenneth Walker. But we're also looking at a Seahawks line that is not the greatest. I mean, they were banged up last year. Maybe the luck will be in their favor and they won't have as many injuries this season. But you just can't look at the Seahawks offensive line and believe that this is going to be someone like I can really invest in without an offensive mind, or not even offensive mind, a strong head coach leading the charge in Pete Carroll. I just feel like there's way too many questions to heavily invest in Kenneth Walker. I think you could talk me into investing heavily on DK Metcalf, though.
Ooh, intriguing. Well, Dustin, before we move on to DK Metcalf, what do you think about Kenneth Walker? Is he an RB1?
I don't know that he's an RB1. And it's just, you guys have already talked about this coaching staff. We just don't know. Until I see differently, he's going to be the guy on the team. But I could also see the team just, who with you're just saying with this offensive line being a little bit more pass heavy. See, now they don't have a chance to really open up those running lanes. They could be just trying to get the ball out a lot quicker. So I could see this being a little bit more pass heavy offense than what we've traditionally seen. So while I still like Kenneth Walker, I just don't see him as an RB1. He's more of a high end RB2 for your squad this year.
The best comparison I can think of is I honestly feel like they're going to flip. I feel like the Cardinals and the Seahawks are going to flip very similar in that the Seahawks are going to be kind of a very scrappy, young defensive mind coach led team, and that there's going to be pops for certain people. But like, I don't know if you're ever going to look at the Seahawks like matchup and go, oh, yep, they got our number. I feel like every team is going to be able to look at the Seahawks right now. I remember I just did a mock draft, I believe, last week, and I ended up with all three of the Seahawks wide receivers and Geno Smith at ADP, because it's like it's hard to knock that value. I feel like Kenneth Walker is the only person really that's kind of overvalued and still looked in the same light as of last year. So I think that's the only person that I'm out on, really.
I like that. I will just end this conversation by saying,
bring me a Charbonnet.
Bring me a Charbonnet. I want the Charbonnet this year, only at ADP, just because, as you've both kind of alluded to, we don't really know. And it could go topsy-turvy, and they could test some shit out, as you're saying, Hoove, and maybe Zach Charbonnet, at least early in the season, get some run. So I will take the chance because he's going to be not undrafted, but super late.
It's kind of like how the Packers really wanted A.J. Dillon to happen, but every time he took those reps away from Aaron Jones, it never passed the line of scrimmage. And you're like, why the fuck did we just give that ball to A.J. Dillon? That easily could have been 3 yards if we gave the ball to Aaron Jones. That's going to be the Seahawks backfield this year.
I like it. I mean, I don't like it. Sorry, AJ. I love you, buddy, but
go play Farmville.
All right. Well, that might have been ruder than my "go fuck yourself, Blake Corum" comment. Really, when you put it into context, I don't know. It might have been. Let's talk about the wide receivers. Well, I wasn't even honestly thinking that much about DK Metcalf in all of this because I don't think about DK Metcalf. I don't think I've ever drafted DK Metcalf. I don't think DK Metcalf is on any of my dynasty teams. So now I need to be sold on DK Metcalf. I'm all ears. You're a fan, obviously, of him for this year at least. What are you seeing with him that makes him appealing?
The only thing really appealing about DK Metcalf is like when someone that doesn't have any muscle looks at someone like that, they're just like, can I beat him, man? I'll invest in you. Can you invest in me, man? I just need like a little bit from you, but
a loner.
No, DK Metcalf very similar to kind of how DJ Moore was last year. I feel like he's just going to be that guy in the offense, and that there's going to be so many weeks where he just kind of separates himself. You've been seeing more of like a Tyler Lockett drop off, like we kind of alluded to earlier, like with those signs of a Derrick Henry dropping off that we haven't seen. We've seen more of Tyler Lockett dropping off. I feel like if they had a better reason to get rid of him this year, they would have. So it's the same wide receiver core, but I think that we're slowly morphing into JSN taking over the outside position. So maybe DK Metcalf's your spread guy, and you have JSN on the outside, and we know how great JSN is. So he definitely will be getting those targets. I'm in to your question.
Yeah.
I love that.
Yeah, and I like where DK is actually going in drafts now. His value's kind of fallen off a little bit after he was like dynasty wide receiver 3, a few years back, and he was getting drafted super high. And now I feel like where he's being drafted, I think that's a really good value. So I love DK this year, and I do think this is the year where JSN overtakes Lockett as well.
Do you think JSN plays the spread, or do you think he plays the outside?
I think they're going to maneuver them both. Tyler Lockett.
I think they'll be kind of be all over the place.
Yeah, it's hard, but I know that those two guys are going to be the people that are on the field the most. But I think we know that Bobo's done, so we have an answer for that wide receiver. That's all that matters.
Pour one out for Jake Bobo. Man,
my dad, right?
What a world he had. Yeah, and now with Ben Skoranek. No, that was the Rams. I can't even use that joke. I can't even use a Ben Skoranek joke here in the middle of this Seahawks thing. But yeah, I'm
way to go.
I think Tyler Lockett has always been a tough one for me to draft anyways, because he's so up and down. He's always so crazy up and down. And I used to be okay with just absorbing those tall weeks and the low weeks. And now I just think JSN is going to be hitting into his tall weeks a lot more. So I'm fully out on Tyler Lockett this year. I hate to say it. I love Tyler, but I'm out. Yes, sir.
Just wait, because when you look at his ADP, this is exactly why I did it too, is when you're like looking past like Gabe Davis and you're looking at Tyler Lockett and you're like, man, this is the poor man's Keenan Allen right now we're looking at. So am I going to do it? I feel like you're gonna end up with a Tyler Lockett share at some point this year. Just at ADP. It's crazy. It's crazy value.
It's like when you open the fridge, maybe after getting home from a long night out, and you're like, well, I could have this very questionable cheese that I don't know how long it's been open and how long it's been in here. Or I have a half of an onion. That's kind of the debate that you're asking me to have right now when you mention Gabe fucking Davis and Tyler Lockett back to back. And I'm just going to pass. I'm going to pass on both and pass out. That's what I'm going to do. I'm locking it in.
They both stink, but only one makes you cry, and that's Gabe Davis. So draft Tyler Lockett.
Oh, well done. Well done.
Thank you. Thank you. I'll be here all week.
Great.
All right. Well, let's, I guess, wrap up. We have to talk about him. I don't know. I really struggled with the third question, I think, Dustin. We couldn't figure out really a third question that's legit for these guys. So I'll just say Geno Smith, put him in the Matt Stafford bucket, I guess. Let's actually just do this. Geno Smith or Matt Stafford in redraft this year. Who are we going with? Dustin, we'll start with you.
Give me Stafford.
Okay, who?
Give me Stafford.
That's a trifecta. That might be the first time all three of us
have a threesome. All right.
Synchronicity. But yes, that is Stafford over Geno.
Put it in, boys.
Wait.
What?
Nope. This is always too hard.
There we go. Yeah.
Wow.
I got the easy one. I'm in the middle. I just go up.
That's true. You really baited us with that one. Anything else you wanted to talk about with these guys, though, Dustin?
I think that was a perfect way to end this episode here on that little trifecta we had at the end. So, I thank you, Who, for coming on. Why don't you tell the folks, before we let you go here, where they can find you, what you're up to? This is your platform here to promote anything you'd like to promote, sir.
All right. So first time I'm going to be getting through this, but I have now joined two companies, Club Fantasy and Optimus Fantasy, and I will be doing work over there for both of them. So if you want to go ahead and support me, you guys can go ahead and support both of those teams. You guys can head over to Club Fantasy FFL or Optimus Fantasy on Twitter, and make sure you guys hit a follow, hit a subscribe, hit that bell icon to get notified for all good things, because they work crazy hard for their content. And let's uplift the community, because the more we uplift the community, the greater the content gets. The greater the content gets, the more people are invested in the fantasy community, which means more paid opportunities for people in the space, which means people are getting paid for their work. So you know what? Let's remember to uplift the community. Let's make sure to go over to Club Fantasy and Optimus Fantasy, and as well hang out with us this Saturday on the Optimus Podathon, because Dustin and Jake are going to be joining Nate and the team over there. So yeah, make sure you guys head on over there. We may or may not be giving away, I don't know if I'm supposed to be telling this, but I'm going to do it anyways. We may or may not be giving away an invitation to one of the most pristine tournaments of all the fantasy football atmosphere there on Twitter. And I can't tell you which one, but I will tell you it rhymes with pot pish. Pot pish.
Oh.
So I don't know what that is, but we may or may not be giving away one this Saturday. So make sure you guys go ahead, follow Optimus, subscribe to their YouTube channel, and possibly enter yourself to a contest. I don't know, but
that famous Thought Swish Bowl that we've heard so much about over the years. Yeah. Definitely Thought Swish 14, I think, is what we're talking about. Couldn't have said it any better, though. Well said.
Absolutely.
And most importantly, thank you guys for having me on, and also thank you guys for coming on this Saturday and uplifting Optimus as well. So it's been an honor. It's been a privilege. Yes. And bang, bang, Niner gang, always.
Woo! Look at that.
It's all on the side of the table.
And Jalen Hurts stinks.
No, thank you.
That's all right there.
Yeah, thank you so much for coming on, Hoove. It was a blast breaking down this division with you. As always, folks, you can find my partner at Jake Trowbridge on Twitter. You can find me at FFDustyDog. You can find the podcast at Drinking Fantasy. Remember, give us your drunk trades. We're collecting those right now. And until next week, folks, keep drinking and talking fantasy football.
Cheers, FFers.